Hello friends and welcome. I'm Sarah Liz and I have a super cute light up card for you today. I filmed this back in the fall for my youngest son's birthday. And when your little guy says, "Mom, I want a light up card," yeah, make a light up card. So this is the Heart Hugs die set from Honeybee Stamps. It's a little bit of an older one, so we're going to use that. But first we're going to ink blend a panel with some clouds. This is the Puffy Cloud Stencil from Trinity Stamps, and I love this one because it's so big and I can just keep rotating and it's a piece of cake, right? So I start on my stencil. I'm like tapping off. This is a really dark ink. It might have been easier if I had started with a slightly lighter one, but it didn't, and I wasn't starting over. And I'm just starting on the stencil. I'll sort of tap my brush to get some of the heaviest ink off, and then I'll work my way down as I continue to rotate. I'm going to put some grass at the bottom so it doesn't have to be perfect. But here is my hedgehog. It comes in two different pieces, and I'm going to add a little bit of ink blending. There's a debossed line around this back piece so you can see where the body is going to fit. And then I just darkened it up a little bit. Is anybody going to notice but me? Maybe not. It looks like a lot of ink right now, but it's still wet, so it'll lighten up. He's going to hold a heart, and normally you could just tuck it into his hands, but I want that heart to light up. So I took the die and I slid it into his hands and I cut it out of his belly. So the hands are still there, but I have a hole for the heart. Then I'm going to go ahead and add the eyes and nose. These are teeny tiny little dies. Probably if I did this again, I would just add those with my pen. It would work just fine, but I hadn't lost them yet. I was feeling brave. So I just went for it. I did use a pen to add like a little smirky mouth because that felt highly appropriate for my son. He is my troublemaker for sure. I've cut a piece of acetate out using the same die that I used for the craft cardstock for his body, and I am going to glue that behind here. It's going to help me with my light up mechanism. I could have just used vellum back here and maybe colored the vellum with a marker, but I wanted like a really intense red. His favorite color is red and it's a little obsessive. So I had to. There's a couple places on this card where I put red cardstock, and I don't know that I would have chosen that otherwise. So you guys will have to let me know. I'll kind of put a few of them out, but he pushes me with cards and colors and ways that really, I think only Craft Roulette does. He'll be like, "Here are the 5 parameters, Mom, for my card. And go. You have an hour. I need to take this to my friend's birthday party." So I have some balloons as well. These come, I think, in that same die set, but I am going to cut a hole into my card panel with the clouds so that those will light up as well. So I'm going to start with one balloon. I'm just kind of figuring out where I want everything. I'll tape that temporarily and run it through my die cutting machine. And once I pop that out, I will use, there's a separate die for the other balloon, and I'll kind of line that up and run it through my die cutting machine as well. I really like tape to hold this down to make sure I get them placed exactly where I want them. I've just kind of laid everything on there so I get my positioning, make sure I like everything. And then I am tracing around those balloons onto some black cardstock. When this lights up, I want the light to shine only through the balloons and not through the white cardstock that is the clouds. And I'm going to do that by creating this extra barrier out of black cardstock, right? So that fits almost perfectly behind there. It's close enough for me. I'm going to use my wet glue, and I'm once again going to add a layer of acetate. So I'll put my cardstock right on top. I will say most of the cardstock the light is shining through is 65 pound, right? So I get that color, that richness, but it isn't going to darken the light at all. And then I trimmed down the black piece so it just hides a little easier back there, and I will line that up as well. So we have like a double thick layer of cardstock everywhere that isn't the balloons, and it really focuses the light that we're shining through there. So here are my 2 balloons that I cut out of red and orange, and I will add those over the top just using some wet glue. They fit in like little puzzle pieces, and it's super easy. And then I have an easy light. This is from Pearblossom Press, and they are in fact so easy. I have wired cards before by hand with copper tape, and like you can do it, and you can do it for cheap, but tell you what, I made one for my husband's 40th birthday and I spent 3 days on that thing. I love how simple this is. So I am just kind of figuring out where I think everything will go. I'm holding my balloon panel over top of the card base and hovering my pencil so I know where I want to tape down my lights. And then here I need a light as well behind my little hedgehog, behind his heart. If I was going to make this card again, I would figure out where I want him and then I would cut a hole through the cloudy panel, right? Just like we did with the balloons. But I didn't. Somehow I thought it would be easier to have the light come through the card base and through the back of the hedgehog and then use foam tape. I tell you what, guys, it was not. It was not. I'm going to show you how I did it. I think there are reasons you might want to do it this way, maybe for a different design, but it would have worked far better if I had just cut the heart through the other layer of the hedgehog and then through the cloud panel. So I've added my grass with some wet glue, and I tell you what, I'm not even sure which grass dye I used anymore. I have 3 or 4 of them. This was probably from Pixie Dust. It's the one that's easiest to reach, and I like it. I am poking a hole through the back of the hedgehog and the cloud panel so that I have a place to thread the light and wire through. And then I'm just going to line these up. I'm going to kind of pick it up so I can see the hole going all the way through, make sure they're in the same spot. My pokey tool really wasn't quite big enough to get the light through easily, and I didn't want to damage it. So I just stuck my tweezers in there to widen that a little bit. And at this point, I'm realizing I have not put the strings on my balloons yet. So I'm just loosening the edge of that hedgehog. And then I will eyeball how long I need that string. And I'm going to add my glue in little bitty dots. And then I will tap that off on the back of my hand. I don't want glue kind of oozing out everywhere. I'll tuck it behind the hedgehog and then lay it down onto my card base, reaching up to my balloon. And I will do the same thing one more time with the red balloon. So I have a question. I want to know what your favorite color is. My husband and my oldest son and I are all like blue teal people. But then obviously I'm a big Craft Roulette fan. And there's a whole team orange, which was mind blowing to me the first time I learned that there are people who love orange. And then of course, Fitty loves red. So anyway, let me know what your favorite color is. On the back panel of my card, I have my dots for my lights that we put on earlier. But then I was figuring out the placement for my button and battery, right? And I like to trace all the way around the outside so I know exactly where it's going to go. And then I put a little dot exactly where that button is. Then I'm using the Papercrafting Magic stamp set from Trinity, and it just has a bunch of like push-pull sorts of things. I put the word push exactly over that dot where the button's going to go. And then I swapped out my card base for my front panel because they're the same size, and I can stamp push onto my front panel and I know it's going to be exactly where it needs to be. I'm going to go ahead and start assembling my mechanism here. So I've added some score tape where I'm going to add my battery and my button, and I know exactly where that is because I traced around the outside. And then I am carefully arranging the wires. There is like an upside, a front side and a back side to the lights. And so I'm making sure as I place these down that the light is facing up. Also, I am using the messiest possible way to put wires down. Full disclosure, I was in a hurry. I was making this on his birthday and I was trying to get this done before he got home from school. So it looks like a little bit of a mess, but it works just fine. I have put the World's Best Foam Tape from Pearblossom Press all around the outside edge. I trimmed it thinner where the balloons are so it won't overlap those holes. And then I have one wire left, right? That's my third light that's going to go through the belly of my hedgehog. I'm temporarily taping that down. I have already removed all my release paper and I stuck it in the corner of my Misty so that I can just lay the corner of this front panel in there as well. And it will be perfectly placed, right? I push my button a bunch of times while I'm doing this to make sure it's exactly where I want it. It absolutely is. The other thing is that's repositionable foam tape. So if it wasn't perfectly placed, I could peel it up for about 30 minutes and then move things and try it again. To finish off the third light, I'm using some super thin black foam. I was like, this is gonna be perfect. There won't be too much bulk. I know I'm not mailing it, but I don't like tons and tons of foam. Well, I ended up having to double up my foam tape. So it's 2 millimeters of black foam, because otherwise you could see the dot of the light. And I really just wanted like a warm, glowing belly. So I doubled it up. I added a little bit of wet glue to help me make sure I got that exactly where I wanted it. It's a little bulky, but Finn doesn't care, and I think it's still really cute. I'm going to use my most used sentiment stamp set here. This one's called Essential Celebrations from Waffle Flower, and I love the mix of fonts. There's like a blocky font and then a beautifully scripty one. This one says, have an awesome birthday, and I'm just going to white heat emboss it. I actually did it once and wasn't paying enough attention. I use a fine detail white, and it's really easy to overheat it. So if you look at the one on the left, it looks like it's sort of melting into the paper, disappearing into the paper. So I redid it. It's not something I talk about a lot, but I have to be really careful with my white embossing powder. I don't know about you, but I wanted to share that. So you push the button and it lights up, and I just think it's super cute. I know I make a lot of videos just to show a card technique or something, but this is what happens when I make cards for people I love. So I hope you've enjoyed this. If you did, maybe give it a thumbs up, consider subscribing, and I will see you next time.